Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Malta's Roberto Metsola, chosen to head EU Parliament, becomes the first woman to win a second term as head of EU Parliament. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth jointly inaugurate high-impact community development projects in Port Louis. Rwanda's Paul Kagame all set for a landslide win in presidential election and secure a fourth consecutive term in office. And in sport, Indian badminton duo of Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty get a favourable draw at Paris Olympics. India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar was received by his Mauritian counterpart Manish Goben in Port Louis on Monday. Minister Jaishankar said that he looks forward to a productive engagement to take forward the special relationship between India and Mauritius. The minister is on a two-day visit which marks one of the first bilateral engagements undertaken by him following his reappointment. Minister Jaishankar and Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth jointly inaugurated high-impact community development projects. Memoranda of understanding were exchanged on the occasion. Overseas Citizen of India cards were presented to beneficiaries. In a joint address to media, Minister Jaishankar says that the visit underscores strong bilateral ties between the two nations.
Mauritius is one of the first countries that I am visiting in my current term as External Affairs Minister. It underscores the strength and depth of our bilateral ties. It is also an opportunity to underline India's unwavering commitment to its special and enduring partnership with Mauritius.
Minister Jaishankar called on Mauritius Prime Minister and discussed ways to continue collaboration and strengthen the bilateral relations. In a series of videos posted on X, the minister said that both nations share a very special relationship. Moving on, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal took part in an outreach session of the G7 Trade Ministers meeting hosted by Italy. On the sidelines of the meeting, he met New Zealand's Trade Minister Todd McClay. The two leaders explored opportunities to give further impetus to bilateral trade and investment. Earlier, Minister Goyal met Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Valdis Dombrovskis. The discussions focused on promoting India-EU trade and economic collaborations, including the ongoing FTA negotiations. Malta's Roberto Metsola secured a broad backing for a new term as President of the European Parliament on Tuesday. Metsola, who took the post in 2022, is only the second president after Germany's Martin Schulz to win another term since the EU Parliament became a directly elected institution in 1979. In continuing a largely ceremonial role, Metsola will preside over a 720-member parliament, which negotiates and adopts EU legislative proposals and approves the bloc's budget. Addressing the EU Assembly, Metsola said that the Parliament should continue to be a strong supporter of Ukraine, the rule of law, and seek the power to propose EU legislation. A group of 63 European Parliament lawmakers has asked the EU to withdraw Hungary's voting rights in the bloc in response to Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary's recent visits to Moscow and Beijing. Orban met Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping on a self-styled peace mission to end the war in Ukraine. The lawmaker said that Orban had deliberately implied that he was acting on behalf of the entire European Union, this despite not having the authority to do this. That said, lawmakers have no formal ability to strip Hungary of its voting rights other than putting political pressure on Brussels. Hungary took over the rotating EU presidency this month. Meanwhile, in a letter to EU leaders, Orban said that US Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is ready to act immediately as a peace broker in the Ukraine-Russia conflict if he is elected in November. Orban has long criticized European military support for Ukraine, in contrast to most allies who support Kyiv's war effort. And DD India's Alex Cadia gives us the latest in this report from Brussels.
The European Parliament is going to have to deal with this week because more than a quarter of these MEPs are now either in far-right or hard-right groups, and that is very different from the Parliament that was returned in the last elections back in 2019. Now, the European Parliament is all about teamwork, all about coalitions, all about finding the group that you can work with, and those far-right and hard-right parties are not always in the same groups, and at the moment, the governing majority of the European Parliament remains in the hands of centre-left, centre-right and centrist parties. We've seen that with the Green Party supporting Roberto Metsola, trying to find a way to build a coalition. But nevertheless, you have Viktor Orban in Hungary, his Fidesz party aligned with Marine Le Pen's Rassemblement National in France, as well as Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy, forming one far-right group. Then further to the right of them is another group of about 25 MEPs described as anti-woke, anti-feminist, anti-LGBT, anti-support for Ukraine, anti-Green Deal and environmental laws, and that will be a real thorn in the side of those centrist European lawmakers in the next couple of weeks, months, and certainly for the next 5 years. How is that going to manifest this week? Well, the big question now will be Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission. That building behind me is up for a vote to confirm her presidency on Thursday. Roberto Metsola sailed through. Not sure it'll be quite as easy for Ursula von der Leyen, Trent.
Israel struck the southern and central Gaza Strip on Monday to put more pressure on Hamas. It follows a weekend strike targeting the terrorist group's leadership. The main focus of Israel's advance since May has been further south in Rafah, though its military also stepped up aerial and tank shelling in central Gaza. On Saturday, Israel struck Mawasi on the western outskirts of Khan Yunis. The town has been sheltering hundreds and thousands of Palestinians who fled to the area after Israel declared it as a safe zone. Israel said that its strikes targeted Hamas military commander Mohammad Deif, an architect of the 7th October attacks on Israeli towns and villages that triggered the Gaza conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Israel's National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi and Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer in Washington, D.C. on Monday to discuss practical solutions to bridge differences between Israel and Hamas on a ceasefire deal. Israeli officials confirmed that Israel is still committed to reaching a ceasefire deal under terms laid down by U.S. President Joe Biden on the 31st of May. Discussions focused on a ceasefire that would secure the release of hostages and at the same time alleviate the sufferings of the Palestinians. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that the White House remained optimistic but realistic at the same time regarding the deal.
They discussed the latest in the ceasefire negotiations that are ongoing, where we are trying to reach a ceasefire that would secure the release of hostages, alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. They talked about plans for the day after the conflict and how to establish governance and security in Gaza. And of course, as always, the Secretary raised the need to even in advance of a hoped-for ceasefire, do more to resolve logistical issues that are preventing humanitarian assistance from being fully delivered across the Gaza Strip. Israel is still committed to reaching a ceasefire, that Israel wants to reach a ceasefire. Obviously, they want to protect their interests. We understand that as part of the negotiating process, but they do want to reach a ceasefire and are committed to these negotiations.
Meanwhile, Israel's army said that its air defense systems identified some 20 rockets launched from Lebanon on Monday. Flares and explosions lit up northern Israel's sky as rockets fired from Lebanon were intercepted over the town of Kiryat Shmona. Israel's army said that no casualties were reported. Dozens of northern Israeli towns and villages were evacuated. The EU imposed sanctions on 5 Israeli individuals and 3 entities on Monday. The sanctions were approved under the European Union's global human rights sanctions regime. Israel was accused of serious and systematic human rights abuses against the Palestinians in the West Bank. Ukrainian drone attacks caused a fire at an electrical device factory which wounded at least 6 people in Russian areas bordering Ukraine. Interim governor of Russia's Kursk region said that no worker was injured in the attack. Russia's defense ministry said that its air defense systems destroyed 13 Ukrainian drones overnight, including one over the Kursk region. Local media reported that officials were considering evacuating people from regions that are close to the Ukrainian border. And now take a look at what else is making news around the world. A bus carrying more than 50 passengers flipped in a highway tunnel in Spain's Catalonia, injuring dozens with 3 in a critical condition. The injured were taken to nearby hospitals for medical assistance. The highway was closed for further traffic. According to a UNICEF report, nearly 50,000 people have sought shelter in eastern Sudan. The ongoing war between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has displaced more than 10 million people so far. Also, the recent ceasefire talks bore no result. A gunfire attack near a mosque in Muscat on Monday night claimed 4 lives and injured many. The details about the cause of the attack are still unknown. Oman is one of the most stable and neutral countries in the West Asian region, despite the turbulent regional situation. The militant attack on the Bannu military base of Pakistan killed 8 security officials, the military confirmed on Tuesday. 10 militants were also killed in a counterattack. The base neighbors North Waziristan, a hotbed of Islamist militancy. And still to come on DD India Live. Police in Kenya fired tear gas to disperse protesters demonstrating against financial reforms. Indian badminton doubles pair of Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty get a favourable draw at Paris Olympics. And World Aquatics audit into handling of positive drug tests by Chinese swimmers concludes that there was no mismanagement or cover-up by the governing body.
On defense dynamics, we will analyze news recently to do with India's latest light combat aircraft, the Tejas Mark 1A. We will be exploring the latest advancements from its cutting-edge technology to its impressive combat capabilities. We will dive into what makes this aircraft a game changer for Indian Air Force. And we'll look at how the Tejas compares to its competitors, including the Chinese J-10. Don't miss in-depth analysis only on DD India on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Citizens of Rwanda voted to elect their next president on Monday, with early results showing incumbent Paul Kagame in the lead with 99.1% of the votes. Monday's vote is widely expected to give Kagame a fourth term and extend his near quarter century in charge of the East African country. Presidential candidates Frank Habineza from the Democratic Green Party and an independent Felipe Mapeyimana said that they were hoping to make some progress, but analysts and rights groups said that Kagame's overwhelming victory is nearly certain. Results are expected by the 20th of July. Police in Kenya fired tear gas to disperse protesters in Kitengela town, demonstrating against the financial reforms by President William Ruto. President Ruto had planned to introduce a financial reform including tax hikes, which was widely criticized by Kenyans as it burdened their already impoverished lives. Submitting to the pressure, President Ruto has recently withdrawn $2.7 billion in tax hikes and sacked nearly his entire cabinet. Yet the protests that started in June continue demanding Ruto to resign from his position. The Indian Army has said that it is committed to eliminating the scourge of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir as it paid tributes to 4 soldiers who were martyred in a gunfight with terrorists in Doordarshan district. Based on specific intelligence inputs, a joint operation was launched by the Army and Jammu and Kashmir Police on Monday following an exchange of fire with terrorists in Dessa area of the district. Additional troops were called in later to support the counter-terror operations underway in the area. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has expressed condolences and said the government is committed to restoring peace and order in the region. A wreath-laying ceremony for the fallen soldiers was held earlier on Tuesday. The e-mobility R&D roadmap for India was launched in New Delhi on Tuesday. In an exclusive interview to DD India, Professor Ajay Kumar Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, highlighted the country's aim to achieve energy independence. The Principal Scientific Advisor's office is working on rare minerals such as graphene to make it accessible and future-ready.
Joining me is the Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor Ajay Sood. Sir, you have just come out with the R&D roadmap for e-mobility. Tell us, what can we expect from that particular draft paper that you guys have come out with?
Our penetration of e-mobility is very high now, and you would have seen even in this year up to June, we have more than few lakhs, 9 lakh vehicles introduced into the market. Now, point is, what will happen 5 years down the line? what are the technologies which will mature, and what are the directions this whole area will take up. So this roadmap done along with all the expert members has put together about 34 R&D challenges which need to be solved for India to take a leadership role in the future.
What kind of finance that we are looking at, because we saw one slide there, we talk about that experimentation, exploration will require near about 1200 crores. Is there something like that?
Yeah, see, this is a estimate by the expert group.
Right.
Now we need to form the task forces. Right. We need to see how they can be taken up in a much more detailed manner. So the numbers will not be very different. Right. But it could be that in some projects you may need only 3-4 crores. Some of them you may need more.
The scientific community, everyone is talking about that this could be the graphene age. Where India stands in respect to that?
In the R&D sector on graphene production on a small scale has been done by many groups. But now the point is, how can we take it on a large scale production? I have a feeling that if we put together all the task forces and program, it can be done in 3 to 4 years.
So that was Professor Sood, the principal scientific advisor, saying that the roadmap is there and they have come out with the extensive roadmap for e-mobility and will be taking it forward in due course of time. With camera person Anand Kumar, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for GD India from Delhi.
A halwa ceremony marking the final stage of the budget preparation process for India's budget 2024-25 was held in North Block in New Delhi on Tuesday in the presence of India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and top finance ministry officials. Now, this is a tradition observed before the annual budget presentation. The ceremony marks the commencement of a lock-in period for officials before the initiation of the printing process for various budget-related documents. In Bangladesh, the quota reform movement turned violent on Tuesday, resulting in the deaths of 3 people and injuries to over 100 in various cities, including the capital, Dhaka. The traffic in Dhaka came to a standstill as students demanding quota reform blocked several key points in the capital. The protesting students have blocked roads in Chattogram, Rangpur, Rajshahi and other cities across Bangladesh, including highways in various regions of the country. The agitators have blocked rail lines at multiple locations, including Mohakhali in Dhaka, resulting in the suspension of train services. To sports news now, top Indian doubles shuttlers Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty on Monday handed a favourable draw at Paris Olympics. They are expected to reach the quarterfinals without breaking a sweat. The doubles teams are divided into 4 groups with 2 from each group qualifying for the last 8 stage. The top 2 pairs will qualify for the quarterfinals where a draw will be held to decide the lineup for the knockouts. After the draw, Chief Coach Pulela Gopichand said, and I quote, "I think it's a decent draw for them. They have avoided tough teams at the group stage. If they do well at the group stage, they may get an easier opponent in the quarterfinals as well," unquote. Rafael Nadal warmed up for his bid for another Olympic medal at the Paris Games with a doubles win at the Swedish Open in Bastad on Monday. The Spaniard returned to competition for the first time since May. The 22-time Grand Slam champion teamed up with Casper Ruud of Norway to record a 6-1, 6-4 win over second seeds Guido Andreozzi and Miguel Reyes Varela on the Swedish clay. Nadal won an Olympic singles gold medal in 2008 and a doubles gold in 2016. He will team up with French Open and Wimbledon champion Carlos Alcaraz in the doubles at Paris. A World Aquatics audit into the handling of positive drug tests by Chinese swimmers has concluded that there was no mismanagement or cover-up by the governing body, while offering recommendations to restore confidence in the anti-doping system. The World Aquatics report reached a similar conclusion as Swiss prosecutor Eric Cotier, who conducted an independent investigation into the case and determined that all protocols were followed without favoritism. The two reports have done nothing to sway U.S. sporting and anti-doping officials who continue to demand a hearing and a more complete investigation. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Live. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download it. And let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.